Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the podcast that takes you inside the huddle, beyond the plays, and into the minds of coaches. I'm Perry Black, and each episode will bring you exclusive interviews with coaches from all levels, sharing their stories, strategies, and lessons they've learned along the way. So pull up a seat, let's get beyond the numbers, beyond the highlights, beyond the scoreboard. Welcome back to episode 8 of Beyond the Scoreboard, brought to you by Battle and LSPA. They've been helping people since 1963. Let them help you manage and plan your financial future. They're a full-service accounting firm that specializes in accounting, tax returns, bookkeeping, payroll tax consulting, and training. They work diligently to keep highly informed and up to date on the latest tax changes so that they can help you make the best decisions regarding your financial future. Give them a call at 208-746-3681. Today's guest is Asotin High School's head football and baseball coach, Jim Holman. Coach, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
You bet. A little bit harder than it should have been for us to hook up here.
Yeah.
We're together every day.
Yeah, like 100 feet away from each other most of the day. All right, Coach. Why don't you just give us a little introduction on who you are and kind of your background in sports, playing career, and then what kind of led you into coaching?
Graduated from Clarkson High School in 1992 and was a three-sport athlete, played football, wrestled, and played baseball. And then after I graduated, I went to WIAA Community College for a year to play football back when they had a program, and didn't work out like I thought it would. I had a girlfriend back home that I was going to marry and move back home, and I think we broke up like 3 days later. Got right into coaching, I think 2 years after I graduated, started coaching at Clarkson High School, volunteering with football with Dave Curtis and then with Dan Randall's and the wrestling program, and did that for a long time. Ended up being an assistant there, coached softball, fast pitch softball for many years. And then after I finally graduated from LCSC and with my degree, a lot of years later, my first teaching job was at Ridgefield High School over north of Vancouver. And I was assistant football coach there, head wrestling coach for 2 years, and then coached softball. And then opportunity came for my wife and I to move back home and a teaching job in Asotin. My 20th year here, been coaching here, football and baseball ever since. My 18th year of baseball and 20th of football here. So 31 years, 32 years overall coaching and playing, and kind of been around, done it all, and enjoyed a lot. Enjoyed most of it for sure.
Good. And so what was kind of that, I don't know, aha moment or what led you to decide, hey, I'm gonna try this out? Kind of being a young volunteer, sometimes that can be kind of scary. Was it just because you still liked it? You still kind of wanted to play, or did you always kind of know that coaching was going to be something in your future?
I didn't know. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I hem-hawed around for quite a while, but then, like I said, my high school coach, Dave Curtis, kind of asked me to help out. And then through that, with football, and then through that, met Dan Randall's, and, it kind of just hung out and was there and enjoyed it. And it didn't take long to fall in love with it. And I always knew I loved sports from day one when I was born, pretty much. So I knew that was a way to stay connected with sports. And so the more I did, the more I loved it for sure. Like I said, I moved up the chain with football until I was the varsity assistant there, and same with wrestling, and kind of went coached baseball a little bit, and then went to softball for quite a few years. I think I coached softball for 8 or 9 years, and then when I came back to Asotin, the head job opened up, and took that and love that now too.
Awesome. I mean, obviously now, you're the varsity head coach of 2 sports. Kind of talk us through the advantages, the disadvantages, the challenges of what that brings to, obviously Asotin is a smaller school, so you're going to be intermingling with the same type of kids, but in 2 different kind of sports with 2 different kind of demeanors. How has that been going, or how has that gone?
I wasn't never sure I wanted to be a head coach at all. And then I did it for wrestling, which is probably the sport I knew the least about at Ridgefield, and came here, was an assistant football coach, and was great. And then the baseball job opened up, and I hadn't coached baseball a lot, like I said. So I did that, I applied for it, got the job, and as you know, and had a lot of success early on, and that was probably the success was probably the addictive part for sure. I continued to be an assistant football coach, and then Sal Lopez resigned as the head coach for football, and I jumped on that, and I was hesitant to do both sports for sure, and I think I'm glad I did it. The advantages are that you can coach kids, a lot of the same kids. And I think we're fortunate here, always have been, because most of our kids are multi-sport athletes.
Sure.
So as you well know, 80% of our football players or 80% of our baseball players play football, play basketball. So that's definitely an advantage is to have those kids, for 6 months out of the year. They know the expectations that we have, so that's an advantage. Another advantage, quite honestly, is the planning of it. There's not a lot of overlap, but as you finish up football and get into baseball season, you can plan those things. And then right now planning summer football, towards the end of baseball, there's a little overlap there, but it's nice to be able to plan those things around each other. I can plan weight room around baseball or practices or team camp and all those things. So to have a hand in that part of it is definitely a big advantage too.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for having control over that schedule, since coaching's obviously takes so much time, away from
Sure.
our families and everything, that it is nice to be able to kind of pick and choose when things happen. Talk about maybe some challenges that's kind of caused for you, maybe some examples of a time that it has been challenging, if any.
Yeah, there's definitely challenges, and the biggest one is time. We have my wife and I have 3 kids, and then they're grown now, getting to the point where they're playing things, and so the time commitment's a lot, and that's probably the biggest disadvantage. There's a 0 chance I could do any of this without my wife.
Absolutely.
She's so hands-on, and during those seasons, she kind of takes care of things, and with the kids and the driving and the transportation, and all those little things and things at home. And, then in the winter, I don't coach anymore. So she coaches AAU basketball. So it's kind of her time. But, without her support, I couldn't coach either sport, let alone 2, just
Right.
because of the time commitment. And that time drags on a little bit and carries over to missing some of the kids' stuff, especially in the spring, which is a disadvantage, but I'm also very fortunate, in both sports, because my assistant coaches are awesome. They all have kids. You guys all have kids. You're an assistant in football and baseball, and we're all on the same page. We kind of all agree we don't want to miss our kids' stuff, so we pick each other up. So while it's a disadvantage with the time, I can say 100% that without my wife or my assistant coaches, I couldn't do either one of them for sure.
Oh yeah, and that speaks volumes on her willingness to do that, especially for so long. And probably helps that she does understand the coaching realm a little better than maybe the average wife would, being a successful head coach in her own right. I do want to ask, as we're kind of on the topic of family a little bit, your oldest son, Blyton, is now getting into high school athletics and is currently playing baseball for us. Talk about how it's been coaching your own son and kind of the joy that's brought. And I'm sure it's awesome for him being, he's watched for so long and been a part of the program outside of player now. But give us some insight on how that's gone and how you and Blyton are kind of meshing together.
We're both learning the role. Like you said, he's been around. I mean, like I said, this is year 18 of baseball. He's 14, so he's literally been around since day one. So he kind of has expectations of things, and he's been in the dugout. He sees how we do things. He knows my expectations. He knows your expectations. So he hasn't had to learn a lot, but it's been great to have him around as a player. I've been waiting a long time for it. And quite honestly, after 32 years, on the downhill side on the sunset side of coaching. But I always wanted to coach him, and it's going good. Like I said, there's some growing pains, there's that fine line of being coach and being dad, which like I said, we're filling it out. Last year he was an 8th grader. He was on JV and new, and, we bring 8th graders up, which is great. So, but this year as a freshman, he knows that his time's coming. So he has to do things the right way. And there's no doubt about it that my expectations for him are higher than everybody else. They have to be as a coach's kid, I feel. He's right, wrong, or indifferent. His success is the success that he has is gonna be quote unquote because his dad's the coach. So he has to fight some of those things too. But we get through it. We've had a couple talks this spring already about it's time to put baseball on pause. Like, let's just not talk about baseball for a couple of days, and I just want to be dad. And
Sure.
the nice part about that, again, I'll talk about it till I'm blue in the face, is with my assistants. With you, like you said, he knows you. He's been around Seth. Morton, coaches with us too. And the nice thing is that because of his relationship with you guys before he coached us, now those times when he feels like he's being picked on by me or whatever, he also has you guys that he can kind of go to, which is huge. Overall, it's gone good. I look forward to moving on. Like I said, he just knows how to do things and our expectations. And, it hasn't been a huge learning curve for him because he's been there, but also obviously because of Gavin and Cody.
Yeah.
He watched them play from day one, and they do, they play the game right.
Yeah.
And so he's had a lot of good role models to be able to do it without too many road bumps from us, between him and I. He might answer that question.
Sure. No, I've been really impressed with him, and he's off to a really good start this season too. He's just growing and learning the game, and it's always helped. He's been in the dugout forever and never been any sort of distraction there, and now it's really fun. It's kind of an outsider a little bit watching that kind of progression from him, so that's really cool, and I'm glad it's going well for both of you. So, Coach, let's talk a little bit about some accolades here before we start, recapping some seasons. First off, the Hall of Fame induction that happened this summer. Give us a little bit of information on that. What did you get inducted for, and how did that come about?
I was totally blindsided. Got a phone call from, the president, Brian Jackson of the Washington State Baseball Coaches Association about this time last year, and informed me I was getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. And I didn't really know how to react. Obviously it's emotional and it's an honor, but it was so out of, left field that I've never been a big, I guess I'm a humble person. Awards, they're awesome, but to me, those things are way more about the athletes you have and the assistant coaches you have. So we've had a lot of success. As you've been a part of all of it in baseball at Asotin over the last 18 years. So to be acknowledged for that and the time and the sacrifice that you do and all the players. So it was overwhelming, for sure. It was a great event. As you introduced me, and that was a great thing to have you be a part of that. Because like I said, it's such a big part of everything we've done. So, it was a cool thing. And bottom line is no matter what, at the end of the day, when I'm gone, my name will always be there, and always have a plaque on the wall and the green sweater. And, if nothing else, I think it's a great tribute to everything that we've all accomplished in Asotin and baseball in the last 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The accolades speak for themselves, and most anybody that's played against Asotin speaks that same way. And congratulations on that. It's an amazing honor, and I was privileged and honored to be able to be a part of that and a little piece there with the induction. But the union, the whole kind of shebang that's put on about the introductions of Hall of Famers and stuff is so cool, and I hope that the state can continue to do that, and it's awesome that they recognize worthy coaches, and you're definitely one of those.
Well, I appreciate it. And just to plug up, just throw a plug out there for the Washington State Baseball Coaches Association. They're, like most things, losing funding, losing sponsorships, and I just heard last week that they're not going to have the banquet this year, and so that's painful. Any coaches, in the state of Washington at any level, baseball coaches, get signed up for that association and get behind it and support it, because there's a lot of good things that group does, and I'd hate to see it continue on the trend of not being able to do those things because of money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've been a part of it for a while now, and it's awesome. It's so much fun, and definitely that Hall of Fame weekend is pretty cool. You know, the all-state games and everything. And not only should they recognize good coaches, but being able to recognize players is probably the most important thing. So being able to keep that weekend alive is very important. And then not only, you know, the coaches clinics and stuff like that are just kind of some cream on top, but yeah, definitely getting all the coaches involved in that, especially the new ones that might not know much about it. I think continuing to push it out into people's faces is an important thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think there's some learning to be done. You know, I'm on the executive board for the Washington State Football Coach Association as well. And that's just a great group of guys that are real go-getters that are really advancing that in a high level too, you know. So hoping to, you know, as I learn more about the executive board for football, being able to help out with baseball a little bit and get it to that level, because that's ultimately what it takes, you know, is a group of people who are dedicated to it. And I'd love to see both associations continue to be strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's imperative, you know, for the coaches in the state of Washington that both those things continue to not only stay but flourish a little bit because they're both important things. And it kind of brings us into our next question and topic is kind of you were on, I believe, you were on the first seating committee, right, for the
Yeah.
state? And I think you've been on it ever since. Is
Mm-hmm.
that right? So speak on kind of how that goes. Maybe give us an example, or not an example, but kind of walk us through how that process works. The WIAA seating committee for football is obviously one of the more important ones probably in the state, just because football's, you know, the most popular by far, I think, and not only in our state but the nation. So kind of speak on how that goes and what the process is for actually
No,
seating them.
it's super fascinating, really. That, you know, we meet before the season starts as a whole group, and then usually around week 7, then the 2B committee, and I think most committees do it the same way. We submit our top 10s each week for transparency, you know, so everybody sees what everybody's rankings are and where teams are. And then we do that each week. And then not a lot of conversation, really. You know, you watch film, we have access to all the NFHS feeds, you know, so obviously you see the teams locally that we play, but, you know, we can watch film on any team. And then on the seeding Sunday, once all the teams are qualified, we get together and um, individually rank the teams 1 through 12. Unfortunately, that the last couple of years, which is a whole different diatribe, I don't love, is a 12-team tournament. But we seed them 1 through 12, and then we submit those to the WIAA, and then somebody there compiles them and averages out our scores, and they spit back to us our top 12, and then from there it's a matter of putting teams in the brackets and you know, try to manipulate it, I guess, whatever we can to avoid some of the, you know, we don't want any league matchups in the first round, and you know, switch a couple seeds in the middle to avoid one team traveling clear across the state. You know, we will to a certain extent. Certainly not an expectation, but if you can make it happen, you can make it happen. But you know, it's an interesting process. It really is. And then there's a lot of discussion, you know, amongst the coaches on it. A couple of guys that are on it with me have been on it the whole time, so you know, we kind of understand what we're doing. But it's a rewarding experience, if nothing else, because the 2B committee overall has got it right more than not. We get to the end of the season, but you know, there's some downside to it too. You know, no matter how you do it, even as good as it ends up in the end, there's always teams and people that are angry, right? So in this era of social media, you know, you hear about it a little bit, and you know, everybody got slighted, and the coaches who are on the committee who are playing in the playoffs are, you know, criticized quite a bit. But you know, I can say the guys on the committee that I've been with that have been in the playoffs, nobody really pushes that agenda of their own team. You know, it's hard to push. It's hard to say, well, Asotin's the best team in the state, no matter what, because the proof is there. You see everybody's rankings. That, you know, it's not like you can sneak a lot in, and that's the reason that we do the last month of rankings is for transparency. So, you know, I'm sure there's ways to improve it. You know, I think there's some ideas out there. One of the things that the State Football Coach Association is doing is kind of getting a partnership going with the WIAA to talk about some of those things and qualifications and some of those things. So I'm on that subcommittee. So, you know, everybody wants to get it right at the end of the day. And I think the seating committees are great I think they're great for all sports. I think we've ended up in the state of Washington with the best teams in the semifinals and the finals, as compared to years before when it was all pre-seeded, right? That
Yeah.
District 9, number 4 was going to go here, um, and I think that this has eliminated a lot of those early first round matchups where it could well have been a state title game. So I think that part of it's on the rise.
Well, and at one point, wasn't it East versus West, and then you
Yeah.
met together? Yeah, that's definitely not the best way about it. And I applaud the WIA for their willingness to kind of change how that the format has been over the years, and then also welcoming a city committee and stuff. I mean, it's probably a little more work for them overall, I would imagine, but I
Sure.
think it definitely has resulted in some better matchups later in the tournament. Talk a little bit about, so I know a lot of it's probably done through Zoom nowadays, but what kind of what happens when a seating committee's team is up for discussion? So it's time to talk about Asotin. What happens in at that time? Are you expected to kind of keep your opinion to yourself? Do you get kind of excused from the room at that point? How does that kind of work?
It hasn't come up a lot, but it has happened a couple of times. One of I think the first 2 years we did it in person in Renton, and there was how things shook out. We were right in that 8-9 range, and there was some. That's kind of a big area, 8 and 9, because in a 16-team tournament, because 8 gets to host and 9 has to travel, and that's one of the things that in my experience has had the most debate. And so the discussion was on who was 8 and who was 9, and I just stepped out of the room and told those guys to decide it, and came back in. So we have some of that. This year was probably the most challenging because Josh Fay and Napavine is on the committee, and myself, and as it turned out, we were both teams were in the semifinals, but we were kind of everybody kind of had everybody in the top 4. So there were some times when Coach Fay and I kind of just stepped back, and we were still on the Zoom, but everybody else kind of debated about it. And ultimately, it's got to have thick skin, right? Because they're going to talk about your team's negative attributes,
Sure.
and so it's part of the game. But I think if it comes down to it, all the coaches, at least on the 2B committee that I've worked with, excuse themselves or from the room or the conversation or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean definitely got to be kind of worrisome sometimes to, especially if they're talking about stuff that might not be totally true, or not true might not be the right word, but isn't being portrayed the right way. I'm just gonna say this because I want it to be on air. I do not understand how the state picks where games are played, and I'm just gonna keep saying that. This is no offense to anybody, but I'm not sure how we were in football, the 2 seed traveled just as far to play the Final Four as the 4 seed, or it's just a confusing thing for me, or the 3 seed, or however that shook out. But seems like there's got to be a way for the state to have a little bit better of understanding of geographical areas and why teams would have to travel the exact same when the other games that were played before us in Richland was not that way. One team was 10 minutes away and the other one was however long. So it's just a little confusing on that, but I would like to get a reason and have some discussion a little bit with the state on as to we've got to figure out some better hosting sites because it just can't be like 2 to choose from.
Yeah, no,
So
and that's another one of the discussion topics the coach association's having too, is playoff sites, and kind of trying to streamline a little bit as far as what the qualifications are. In the semifinals, you have to be on turf. There's some things there, but I think there's plenty of coaches across the state that ask the same things, for sure.
yeah,
Some schools get to host. I mean, there's been teams that host the playoff game at their own facility and in the semifinals, and I don't know if that's right either. So,
right. No,
I do think, I'm not a WIA apologist by any means, but I think for the most part they're willing to listen. That doesn't mean they're going to change things, but they're at least listening.
yeah, sure. All right. Well, while we're on the topic of football, let's kind of recap Soton's last football season. as we've mentioned, got to the Final Four, the semifinal of football, lost to, perennial power in Napavine, and, for the most part was pretty competitive there. Had some close wins in the playoffs. Just kind of give us your thoughts on that season and kind of how you thought it went.
Yeah, it was a great season looking back at it. I will say unexpected to an extent. The year before, last year, we got beat in the first round of playoffs and graduated, three huge parts of that. So we had a lot of guys coming back. Our numbers are horrible. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've talked to people at coaching clinics this year or this fall or this winter and can't believe that refuse to believe that we only had 18 guys on our roster. And that's the fact. In 8-man football, we had 18 guys, and we all knew that if we could stay healthy, we had a shot.
11-man football. 11-man football.
11-man football.
Yeah.
Right. So 18 guys on an 11-man football team, and we couldn't get any guys hurt, and we really didn't. We had one senior missed games, but he had a pre-existing knee condition, so he had to kind of shut it down. But other than that, every guy played every snap, which doesn't happen on any team, let alone a team who flat can't have that happen. So there was some luck in there involved too. That we had some close games during the regular season, and our league is just so tough in all sports, but same in football. So to go through that gauntlet and get to the playoffs, and then we didn't know what to expect again, but our first round game against Cle Elum here was a battle. We were down big, had to ride to win that one. But got it done. Played LaSalle in the quarterfinals, another really good football team, and they had the chance to win it. Got scored and went down by one and went for two, and we fortunately stuffed that play, to win that game. And then Napavine, like you said, that's just what they do, is they win athletic events over there. So, but we had a lot of good things come out of it. I think our team was really tight. That few number of guys kind of got to be together. They got to play together. They got to play for each other. But I think outside of the surprising part of no injuries was just that we could continue to get better at practice with 18 guys.
Yeah.
I feel kind of silly telling you in this podcast because you were there, but we have coaches running routes and playing quarterback and playing linebacker and standing there, and we have, like we said, my son who can't play football, he's running routes, and we got everybody we possibly can, and it took all that. Alumni came back the week of the semifinals during Thanksgiving and helped us out and gave us advice. So it really did take everybody to get it done. We had the luck of the injuries on our side, and most importantly, we just have really good football players that bought in and believed and played for each other. And, I think, our seniors are passionate guys and just football players. They love football. And I think it was really easy for the other guys to follow them and love it as well.
Yes. Speaking from being there and being a part of it, it was definitely an unbelievably tight group of players. And like you said, we did get fortunate quite often with the injury bug didn't hit us, which is awesome. But man, it was a fun year. We have some really high level competitors on our team and in our school, and that was fun to see them kind of gel together and believe. The first two state games kind of speak for themselves in that regard of being able to come back, rally back, and then same thing in the quarterfinal game. But another top four finish for Asotin in football. If I'm not wrong, is that the fourth or fifth, I think, of your head coaching career?
Third time in semifinals.
Third time in the semifinals. So, that's another good run, and obviously quite a few more as an assistant. But yeah, another great 2024 Asotin football season. And with that, we jump right into kind of the meat and potatoes of the baseball season here. A great start. Asotin started 3-0, beat Riverview twice, which was the state finalist last year for the 2B level, and then got a good win against Freeman the other night, which now they're going to be right in the middle of the state action in baseball. Speak on kind of the preview of the expectations in baseball a little bit, and got an unbelievably tough non-conference schedule coming up. So give us your insight on kind of how the baseball season is going to shape out in your mind.
Well, I'm excited about it. Again, we got beat last year in the quarterfinals to the eventual state champion at Tri-Cities Prep in a close game that we, by all rights, easily could have won. Again, we lost some seniors, coincidentally, the same three seniors that we lost in football, as we talked about. But, I think that what we're trying to figure out right now is some positional things. We have the guys that can play, and we have guys that played a lot of baseball. A lot of these guys, and I think the guys that, the starting 9 last week, I think, geez, 8 of them, 7 or 8 of them, 7 of them played in the summer. So they put in the time, played a lot of baseball. So we have the guys that can compete and that are good baseball players. We're just, so early in the season trying to figure out who goes where and stuff. I think our strength is our pitching. We bring back our 1 and 2 from last year. Cody L's a 2-time, 3-time All-State player, All-League player.
MVP.
And so he's kind of the center of our pitching staff. But then we AJ Ulrich, Cooper Thomas, and these other guys, Sam Hall, all guys who pitched for us last year at the varsity level. And then we have, a handful of kids that are sophomores and freshmen that can pitch. So I think our pitching's super deep, which is helpful, especially in a schedule like ours. Like you said, we loaded up our non-league schedule pretty well with Riverview, playing Napavine in baseball. We're going to go up to Gonzaga and play Goldendale, and then, a potential matchup with Tula Lake, who's a perennial power, and then dip down and play DeSales, who was 1B team, but won a state title last year, and then at the end of the season, throw in Pullman, a successful AA team. So I'm really excited about our non-league schedule on top of a tough league schedule. We finally went north and south. So in the south, we have Freeman. Like you said, we played them Tuesday. We play them again doubleheader Saturday. So right out of the chutes, we're going to kind of feel out where we are within our league. And Colfax is always tough. They always have good baseball players, really well coached. So that south is going to be a battle just to get out of there and get to districts. So I think these non-league games are really going to help us be battle tested when you add them to those league games come May, is the hope. But we're also young, too. It's a weird dynamic. We have a lot of guys. If I talked about it, these guys have been playing with us for 3 and 4 years, and it's the same guys. They're just matured and they've developed, and just listening to batting practice now compared to 3 years ago is incredible. Just the sound of the bat. So they put their time in, and so I'm really excited to see what happens and how things progress.
Yes, me too. I can't wait. We had a really good run there last year, especially coming on hot kind of at the end of the year and bringing back a lot of the innings and, some of the key components to our team and, middle infield. And we do lose a pretty big piece there with Gavin Ells for moving on and graduating, but we bring back a couple younger guys that I'm excited about and can't wait to watch them play. But yeah, Asotin baseball, in the state tournament, getting back there last year was definitely a pleasing thing and something that hasn't happened very much, in years past, not being in the state tournament. So getting back there has been important. And I think we're kind of back in that uphill battle of maybe not being an underdog, quote unquote, anymore. I think people might understand who we are again and some of the type of players that we have. So I can't wait to see how that all kind of works itself out. Well, Coach, I think we'll wrap up with just a couple rapid fire questions here. And in this segment, we just want to get your first thoughts and what comes to mind. All right, here we go. First question: favorite NFL football team?
Seattle Seahawks.
Favorite MLB baseball team?
Seattle Mariners. See a trend?
Favorite NFL player ever?
Ever. That's a tough one. Man, a lot come to mind. I really, really have a soft spot in my heart for Bo Jackson. I mean, he guy was a stud. Maybe it's because he played 2 sports, but, he was a competitor and maybe as big of a competitor as there has been.
Absolutely.
So, he's up there, but, way back in the Seahawks days, Walter Jones, an offensive lineman, made a name for himself and kind of an offensive lineman at heart. So, somebody like that that paved the way for offensive linemen in Seattle and really led to their success eventually at the offensive line position is dear to my heart too.
Favorite MLB player ever?
Yeah, probably King Griffey Jr. But it's a close battle with Jay Buhner too.
Yeah.
He can be good at baseball and I think that one of the biggest things to me about both those guys is they're good at the sport. With Griffey arguably the best ever, but just you could always tell that they had just had fun, and
Yeah.
ultimately that's what it's about.
Yes, absolutely. A favorite sport to participate in?
Probably football. Was by far my better sport in high school. I enjoyed wrestling a lot and baseball too, but if I had to pick one, football.
Gotcha. And favorite hobby to do outside of sports?
I'd say watch my kids play. Like I said, we talked about my son. He plays football or plays basketball, plays baseball. My girls play softball, play basketball, play volleyball. So watching them all play sports, definitely. If I have to go outside of sports, it's camping with my family, with my wife and kids. We camp. We have side by side, so that outdoors kind of stuff.
Awesome. And coaching role model.
It's funny because I have a lot of those. I don't know if I could pick one. Dave Curtis was big for me when I played. Bill Curtabaugh, I played for him, and I coached for both those guys too. Were very instrumental. And then since then, being able to coach with Dan Randall's wrestling at Clarkson High School, and then more recently, when I got to Asotin, coaching with Rick Wilcox, they all just have a different way of going about it, and they all did it the right way. So, I think if I could mesh all those people into one person, that would be it. But those guys are all pretty special in my coaching journey.
Awesome. All right. And the last thing I'm going to ask you here, what's the Mariners record going to be at the end of the year?
Good question. Guess we'll find out in about half an hour how things start. I think if they can, I'm for sure not going to say 54% of their games. I think, if they can get to 95 wins, that's great. That's a lot. But with their pitching staff, there's no doubt they can get it done. If they can just find a couple of guys who can swing it and Julio can have a good year, I think they're in a good spot.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate you joining us here for episode 8, and I look forward to the baseball season that's coming here, and maybe we can meet up again at the end of it and kind of recap how that one's gone.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks again, Coach. Have a good one.
Thanks.
That's a wrap for this episode of Beyond the Scoreboard. A big thank you to our guests today for sharing their insights, stories, and wisdom from the world of coaching. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us reach more listeners like you who are passionate about the game and the people who make it happen. Follow us on all the socials for updates and behind-the-scenes content. And as always, join us next time as we continue to go beyond the stats, beyond the sidelines, beyond the scoreboard.